could be on the cards for New South Wales residents earlier than first flagged. Live to Trudy McIntosh in Canberra now. Trudy, so when could the border reopen?
Pete, it's slated for the middle of November, but the Prime Minister has now revealed he's willing to bring that date forward for New South Wales after having these talks with the new Premier, Dominic Perrottet. There's no doubt Mr Perrottet wants to see his state reopen to the world. They're waiting, though, to make sure that this trial for home quarantine, 7 days instead of 14 for fully vaccinated arrivals at a hotel, that is at first successful before they open the floodgates, remove or dramatically increase those weekly arrival caps. Here was the Prime Minister on that prospect.
I know the New South Wales Government is looking at ways to fast-track home quarantine in November. And if that happens, we will be able to move to facilitate the opening up of the international border into New South Wales sooner. Now, that would mean home quarantine for vaccinated Australians wishing to return home via Sydney, and giving the option for international travel for vaccinated Australians to leave and to return.
It's a freedom day of sorts too for the Prime Minister. He'll exit after 14 days of home quarantine at the lodge here in Canberra, exiting to an ACT that still remains in lockdown. He posted pictures of himself making curry just before he leaves the lodge today. It's in fact his third time doing a 14-day quarantine stint in the space of 6 months. So quite the toll spending time alone there at the lodge.
And will there be another one after Glasgow?
Yeah.
Whether he goes or not, we shall see. And that leads us quite nicely now to the PM leaving the lodge and facing that fresh fight with the Nationals over climate targets, Trudy.
And that's the critical question, Pete. Does the Prime Minister go to Glasgow at all? And could he go with a new deal struck with the Nationals on a net zero emissions target by 2050? At this stage, it's up in the air. He's been holding negotiations with Nationals leader Barnaby Joyce. Today, Nationals MPs will hold this virtual party room meeting to discuss that prospect, but don't necessarily expect to see any sort of major outcome today. Likely to be thrashed out this time next week when they all meet in person here in Canberra. Instead, today, the National Farmers Federation will brief the party room. The National Senate leader, Bridget McKenzie, she's going to take a proposal today that would see a pause button inserted in any potential target that down the track, if it's impacting regional areas, Australia could pause its commitments. Certainly, though, one MP, National Senator Matt Canavan, doesn't believe anything can get him over the line.
No, I mean, I've stood at every election of the last decade against these sort of policies. We've been elected on that mandate. Indeed, at the last election, myself and Angus Taylor and Scott Morrison all stood behind economic modelling, which said that a 45% emissions reduction cut would cost 336,000 Australian jobs. And I'm not turning my back on that. I think it would be stupid for us to do that.
Now, it's crucial to remember Barnaby Joyce doesn't need unanimous support for any proposal. He just needs a majority of MPs in his party room to back any potential deal. But it seems that compromise, Pete, still a way off.
All right.